Hey everybody, today I'm going to react to another Jubilee video, and this one is going to be about the death penalty. Let's check it out.
Having a death penalty deters people from committing crimes.
So that's an empirical statement, right? So you have to use the tools of science to determine if it's true. You can't just base it off of logic.
That's the foundation of my entire argument, the reason why I stay on the left-hand side. Not because I feel that capital punishment should be handed out, dished out to everyone that commits a crime. No, I'm talking about the idea that, in my opinion, capital punishment is a deterrent. It influences the way people behave. Look.
Yeah, and you may think that that's the purpose of punishment, right? The purpose of punishment is to deter crime, and because capital punishment is kind of like the ultimate punishment, then it deters the most crime or the most heinous crimes. Again, while it may make sense, it doesn't mean it's actually true. To figure out the truth, you have to do studies. You have to study statistics.
Look at Michigan. Michigan abolished capital punishment in 1858.
Exactly.
Look at the crime rate in Michigan right now.
It's hard to make these kind of determinations, right? Because it may just be a coincidence that those two things happened. A crime could have increased for a number of reasons, right? So it's kind of hard to point at one thing like that and determine that it was the cause.
I really don't remember any time someone was like, I really want to kill someone, but that death penalty, man, oh.
I'm thinking that what's motivating his statement is that killers are going to kill anyway, right? So maybe you have like these psychopaths or serial killers and they don't really care about the death penalty. So they're going to do what they're going to do. And you have other people who are acting out of anger or something like that. They're just reacting to something that just really triggered them. And so they're not acting rationally, and so they're not going to be deterred by the death penalty.
Everyone deserves a second chance.
To just let them out of society, that's too much of a second chance. But within the confines of prison for such a heinous act, that you do get a little bit more.
Only one.
Interesting. I like the nuanced position here. Just because somebody gets a second chance doesn't mean that they necessarily get released back into society. So I guess I'm not entirely sure what they mean by second chance then, right? Is there, maybe they go to like a better prison or something like that? I don't know.
I think I'm a little confused about where it is that this line is drawn, because that makes the difference between a second chance, between life and death, between consideration and no consideration.
I think it does start with obviously the crime that you commit. There's a difference between intentionally and unintentionally killing a person.
Okay, so what if I put a pillow over a woman's face?
So this statement assumes that the person's intentions actually affects the severity of the crime, which is an interesting philosophical discussion in and of itself.
If someone genuinely apologizes for a crime, their punishment should be reduced.
The hardest part of this concept, this idea, is how do you judge someone's genuine authenticity in their apologeticness, right?
There's no way of validating an apology. I mean, like, how do you know if they're apologizing, they're lying? That happens a lot. I mean, there are people who seem so genuine and behind their eyes, they're not,
you don't
they're
know.
not truthful.
All right, so one question is whether or not how we tell that they're apologetic. The other question is whether or not it actually matters.
If my mother were to commit murder, I would vouch for her to receive capital punishment.
Oh, great question. Great question. I've asked my students a very similar question, right? I've asked my students, well, let's imagine that one of your parents robbed a liquor store. Would you call the cops on them, right? Would you turn in your own parents or someone that you loved? A lot of my students said no, they wouldn't, because they're too loyal to their parents. Oh, look at that consistency. They want to be consistent.
I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and say that I'm for capital punishment. If my own mother would to commit a crime that's so heinous, I would be for, even for her.
The law applies to everyone.
Everyone, even my own mother.
Yeah.
I am afraid that there are innocent people on death row.
Yeah, there probably are innocent people on death row. Look at the Innocence Project.
I think we can all agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
That there has been instances. There's no denying that.
Yeah, if one person is innocent, that's enough for me to not trust the legal system.
So then the position is not that you're against the death penalty in theory, is that you're against it in practice because of the imperfections. The process is imperfect. Innocent people can get killed and probably have been killed. All right, so here are some final thoughts. I think the first big question that people have to answer is what they think the purpose of punishment is, okay? Why do we even have punishment to begin with? Is it to try to rehabilitate people right? Or is it simply because we think that they deserve to suffer? Once you determine what the purpose of punishment is, then you can better determine what type of punishments would be justified, right? Because if the goal is to rehabilitate somebody, then obviously capital punishment wouldn't make sense. Another aspect of this issue that I think is really complicated is the concept of personal responsibility, right? We want to punish people who are responsible for their actions. But one important question to ask here is how much our actions are actually attributable to us. It makes sense that people are, to some extent, products of their environments, right? Like if you just had a really bad childhood, if your parents were really abusive, or if you grew up surrounded by criminals and that was just the way of life that you were exposed to, I mean, I'm not surprised if you end up being a criminal. You know, I don't think any of us are surprised by that, right? So then it raises that question, like, how much is that person responsible for how they turned out, right? We don't want to say that they're not responsible at all, or at least most people don't want to say that. But at the same time, we want to recognize the power of the environment in which we grew up and the power of the environment has on our character. This debate is largely going to be affected by what the facts say, right? Does capital punishment actually deter crime? And again, we're going to have to rely on people studying this stuff, right? We have to study statistics in order to figure out what the truth is. We can't just rely on our own logic and our own anecdotal evidence. So how do you have these type of conversations if you don't have all the evidence, which is probably 99% of the conversations that we have with other people? The way that I do it is formulate my statements as conditionals. So if X, then Y, right? If this is the case, then I would be in favor. If this is not the case, then I would not be in favor. So if it's the case that capital punishment deters crime, then I'm in favor of it. If it doesn't, then I'm not in favor of it, or vice versa, okay? All right, I'm going to end it here. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you all next time.